The word mentor actually comes from the Odyssey. Odysseus, right? In the Odyssey, he's the king of Ithaca. He leaves and he travels for a decade or more, wanders in an Odyssey, this rambling journey, and he appoints a person named Mentor to oversee and guide his son Telemachus. Mentor actually really isn't a man. Even though he seems like a man, he's actually Athena in disguise. Athena is the goddess of wisdom, of war, and she's extraordinarily special because her parents are Zeus on Mount Olympus and Mêtis. I have a chapter in Firecraft on Mêtis. So the idea of the mentor, if you actually think of the word men, the Proto-Indo-European root, it means to think with. Odysseus appoints mentor not to tell his son what to do or oversee his son, but to guide his son in the process of discovery, right? Mentor is really Athena. She's about wisdom and experiential learning and knowledge through doing, because her mom, Mêtis, was about turning the world to our advantage and not necessarily cognitive thought. So when I was asked to think about my mentors, I think about the people and places with whom I've thought. One long-term mentor for me is Lake Huron. I've had this feeling long before I even thought about the word mentor, that Lake Huron was sort of my abiding matriarch in some way, shape, or form. I grew up across the street from Lake Huron in a small rural town in northern Michigan. I woke up to the sun rising over her horizon. I saw moons. I saw ice. I saw all of it. At Lake Huron, she gave me the gift of the experience of wonder, of the experience of place and belonging, of possibility and horizon, the experience of beauty and tragedy, right? There's fun on the lake. People also die on the lake. The experience of entwinement, essentially, of thinking and the sensory experience. So it's like if I think about where I've gone in life and how I'm always thinking through doing and doing through thinking and always relating sensuous experience and thought, I really credit Lake Huron with having given me that gift. It was like this belief or faith in life that I could learn through accepting what the world had to offer, and that world was always ever changing. One person I'd like to point out is my English high school teacher, English and creative writing, Ms. Reisner. This is the inscription on the journal that I still have from her. And it reads, "Now that you've learned the excitement of imagery, you can proceed to reap the sensory details of your life. Capture all emotional moments in writing. The human mind is so poor to remember. However, every man's memory is his private literature." Aldous Huxley. "Keep writing," she says, "and saving. Best wishes always, Anne L. Reisner. Keep in touch." And you better believe it, I sent her a copy of Firecraft. I'd always written stories since I was in elementary school, but she taught me that writing could be a way of plumbing the depths of one's interiority, of engaging contradictions that one perceived in the world, of addressing the gap between what people said and what they actually did. And she let me know that this was all legitimate enterprise called literature. Well, I know I was bisexual since the time I was 10, and I didn't have a way to express that or know that. So writing became a very safe place for me to explore the wonder that Lake Huron had given me, to pursue those horizons that the lake had given me that maybe weren't in the ready, apparent world of my small town, to take risk and like write myself out of whatever limitations, like I didn't even perceive them at the time. But if I had a longing to pursue it, even if I didn't know what it was, through writing and through that craft, create possibilities and new worlds for myself. I'm a first generation college student. nearly failed my first semester of college because I just didn't know what was going on. But Ms. Reisner gave me the tools to know that I could figure it out, that there was this method of exploration and questions that I wanted to answer. So luckily in college, I met a few other amazing mentors there in philosophy, social science, and women's studies. Ron Puick, Herbert Gerlich, Marilyn Frye, Ron Wilkinson, and Richard Peterson. And I remember like my first classes with Professor Frye, and she said words like patriarchy and lesbian literature. And I can still remember the synapses firing in my brain. So I just so credit my early high school English and creative writing teacher and those college professors at a state school that gives kids exactly like me a chance and a break. Firecraft is pretty much an autoethnography. I write about myself learning and all the other characters play into it. That's not the case with the middle mineral in the mine. It bridges natural sciences, social sciences, and art on people with that scientific knowledge, glass chemists, engineers, geologists. And two incredible mentors to me have been Tom Littleton, who owns and runs Spruce Pine Batch Company, and Greg Fiddler, who's the operations manager at Spruce Pine Batch Company. You're going to love to know that both Tom and Greg have training as anthropologists, either as undergrads or in graduate school also. My research would not be what it is today without them and their support and their knowledge. Greg has accompanied me to the mines and himself developed a relationship with the geologists. There's Candy and Steve in the upper right-hand corner, and Doug and Steve in the bottom right-hand corner. And they've spent so much time with me, teaching me how to sling batch, teaching me how to mix the minerals, teaching me the difference in the minerals, what they mean, how they're sourced, and just genuinely being up for the adventure of what a geoanthropology in studio glass would look like. But there's also the simple fact of the office at Spruce Pine Batch Company, which is one of my favorite places on the planet to be. It's filled with instruments, with historical posters from the studio glass movement, with all kinds of paperwork that it has to do with invoices and formulas and little bits of history. The Diderot's encyclopedia on the very back wall of glassmakers. Every run of batch gets logged, what's in it, right? So you can go back and see what's wrong. The reason why it's so important, of course, is for all these pragmatic reasons. What is a glass chemistry and what does it mean? You know, and the stories that we tell are so often about glass blowers, which of course makes sense. But thinking about the batch company and the relationship, you know, allowing myself to go way far back beyond the Toledo workshops, I thought about The Art of Glass by Antonio Neri. It was the first book published in 1612 with glass recipes, right? And it's very known in the field. There's a super special word for Neri. And it's not that he was an alchemist or a priest, because he was both of those, but he was also what was called a consigliere, someone who mixes glass batch. I think about Greg and Tom as consigliere, and this office and the downstairs actual factory with that agglomerator as a consigliere laboratory or workshop. Not to mention the hot shop in the back where you actually pull the test, right, to see how the glass is working. The entire compound is a consigliere laboratory or workshop. I'm super thrilled in my new book to be bringing this concept of the consigliere, the glassmaker, he who mixes, bringing it back, right, integrating it into that hot shop story of the glass blower. This is what happens before the pot is set. And then how can that help us story anew?
Thanks for checking out this GEEX Shorts episode. This is just one of 10 chapters featuring the speaker's artwork, artistic practice, and direct conversations with the community. The full-length video, only publicly available for a limited time, can be found in the GEEX Talk subscriber archive, where you can also discover hours of content on even more contemporary glass artists and researchers. As a BIPOC and artist-led organization, GEEX redefines the culture of contemporary glass by canonizing artists and thinkers who have been historically marginalized in the field. If you'd like to support this effort, subscribe to GEEX and gain access to exclusive content. For more info, visit geeks.glass/support.